Welcome to this explainer. Today we're jumping right into part 2 of the Island Venture series, and man, we are mapping out an absolutely fascinating journey. We're going from the highest levels of venture philosophy all the way down to the bare physical metal of a machine. I mean, have you ever actually stopped to think about how a messy, abstract human thought translates directly into a real-world physical action? Well, today we're tracing that exact thread of logic. We're going to unpack the deterministic inference engine of the modern venture capital publishing house and figure out exactly how to secure true creator sovereignty.
Okay, so here's our roadmap for this descent to the metal. First up, the legitimacy VC vineyard. Second, the FPU gambler versus the ALU surveyor. Third, we'll explore the deterministic inference engine. Fourth, the unbreakable PTY pipeline. And finally, we'll bring it all together with the Sovereign Pilot CLI.
All right, Section 1, the legitimacy VC vineyard, cultivating deterministic value over time. Because before we can even begin to fix the hardware, we really have to understand the foundational philosophy that's actually funding it.
So there's this profound, really stark contrast in how venture publishing houses operate today. Think of the liquidator VC like a loud Vegas casino floor. They're placing these aggressive bets, riding wild hype cycles, and just aiming for rapid, short-term extraction. But then you have the legitimacy VC, which abandons that whole casino vibe completely. They operate on a full 10-year time horizon. Why? Because truly difficult, world-changing technology just can't be rushed in a 2-year hype cycle. It's all about planting seeds and meticulously cultivating a yield that actually compounds over time.
Now listen to this quote straight from our sources. They don't really care if the horse is killed as long as there's one winning. It's brutal, right? But it perfectly captures the massive collateral damage of that old casino model. It's a system that treats founders and their projects like they're entirely disposable lotto tickets. It just completely ignores the lost jobs, the burned-out creators, and the totally wasted technological innovation left in its wake.
Moving to Section 2, FPU gambler versus ALU surveyor, the microscopic hardware reality. Let's zoom all the way down from that VC boardroom right into the physical silicon chip and look at the grand computational illusion at the very heart of modern AI.
Here is the reality we're dealing with. Modern AI relies heavily on the guessing FPU, but true mathematical legitimacy demands the strict, verifiable logic of the ALU. The floating point unit, the gambler, is incredibly fast, sure, but it achieves that speed by basically throwing darts at a board. Chip manufacturers literally burn completely secret proprietary seed tables directly into the silicon just to help the FPU guess the math. On the flip side, we have the arithmetic logic unit, the surveyor. It acts like a surveyor in the field with a highly precise laser. It performs exact, verifiable arithmetic with absolutely no hidden seed tables, making it a globally accountable universal witness.
And relying on that FPU gambler triggers something called the wood chipper effect. Because the math is just a lossy guess, it acts like a giant blender. Once it's blended, you can never reverse engineer that digital smoothie back into its original fruits. And that completely destroys legal accountability. The exact chain of title, the identity of the original data contributors, permanently wiped out. You simply cannot build verifiable digital trust on a foundation that, at its core, is just guessing.
Section 3, the deterministic inference engine, forcing the AI into verifiable exactness. Let's dive right into how we actually fix this massive hardware flaw and build a true deterministic inference engine. We literally have to eliminate that probabilistic guessing and force the machine to execute with absolute physical certainty.
Enforcing this concept of batch invariance is exactly how we stop AI from guessing under pressure. See, in traditional setups, if a server gets busy, the GPU calculations actually change order, causing probabilistic drift, meaning you literally cannot guarantee the exact same outcome twice. Crazy, right? To fix this, engineers use very specific memory routing techniques. They sacrifice a tiny bit of speed to guarantee that the exact same instructions are used for every single request. By carefully managing how memory is split and processed, we completely lock down the determinism.
Now let's talk LIFO JSON state trees. LIFO simply stands for last in, first out. Imagine a super efficient bouncer at a club who only needs to check the ID of the person standing directly in front of him to know the exact state of the line. Because the very last item to go in is always the first one to come out. You only ever need to query index 0 of your data tree to establish flawless mathematical proof of the system's state. There's zero ambiguity here. The state is either mathematically true or it isn't.
Section 4, unbreakable PTY and GNU screen, engineering the exact network pipeline.
Okay, so once we have absolute hardware truth locked down, we need an entirely lossless TTY and PTY network pipeline to actually communicate with it. To do this properly, we must abandon heavy graphical interfaces for a pure, uninterrupted stream of exact text. Graphical user interfaces, GUIs, are actually incredibly fragile. If you try to automate an AI using a GUI, it relies on screen scraping, which is basically guessing what to click based on shapes and colors. If a website changes a single button layout, boom, the entire workflow breaks. But the command line interface, or CLI, is completely different. It talks directly to the machine's arithmetic brain using exact text characters, generating 100% lossless logs with absolutely zero guessing.
So here are the exact mechanics of that unbreakable pipeline. First, we launch an isolated pseudo-terminal, or PTY channel. Think of it as an uncompromising, highly secure text-only pipe right into the operating system. Then, by wrapping that session in a terminal multiplexer called GNU Screen, it becomes absolute magic. Unlike a web browser that just drops all your work if the Wi-Fi even blinks, these PTY channels act as sovereign environments. You can literally disconnect your laptop, walk away, go off the grid for days, and your AI workflow just continues safely on the remote server. You can reattach later with mathematically certain zero data loss.
Finally, Section 5, the Sovereign Pilot CLI, connecting human intent to physical execution. Let's look at how you, the actual human operator, command this entire deterministic architecture as we step into the era of the algorithmic orchestrator. To truly be a creator today, you have to achieve hachicity. It's this deeply fascinating philosophical concept that roughly translates to thisness. It's a unique, irreversible digital exertion of effort that completely rejects algorithmic distortion. It is the exact moment an action happens in the digital world that can never, ever be undone. The literal sweat of the brow. It's the profound difference between a machine statistically guessing what you might want to say versus you explicitly forcing the machine to execute exactly what you designed.
And this maps our complete descent to the metal, perfectly translating fluid human imagination across that semiotic bridge straight into strict physical reality. We start with OS alpha, our warm, fuzzy, associative human minds. We formalize that messy intent by typing it into our agentic typewriter, the CLI. That highly structured text travels safely down the unbreakable PTY pipeline, totally bypassing the probabilistic guessing of the cloud until it finally hits the rigid, deterministic execution of the hardware AOU. You are quite literally tricking rocks into thinking using lightning and text.
The human pilot applies the intent, but the agent cell executes the sweat. This dynamic right here perfectly defines the modern geometry of authorship in the agent-to-agent economy. You, the sovereign pilot, provide the overarching strategy, the emotional resonance, and the explicit text commands. You provide the intent, the deterministic machine simply acts as the brush, executing the mechanical sweat with flawless ALU fidelity. I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought to ponder about your own digital sovereignty. As we navigate this incredibly saturated agentic era, you really have a fundamental choice to make. Will you blindly trust the chaotic casino of the algorithm, or will you wield the CLI and command the physics? The machines are sitting there, just waiting for your instruction. So what magnificent, beautifully messy human intent will you orchestrate today? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep building.